Okay, so now we are talking about pre-skills as one of the components, the third component of the instructional design. Um, it's often overlooked. People don't, they just see this is the scope and sequence, this is where we're supposed to be, and so this is what I'm going to teach. And a lot of times thoughts about what are the skills necessary to possess to be able to solve this new skill are not given a lot of attention. So you, in good solid instruction, need to think about what are those skills that child needs to have prior to being able to engage in this new concept or this new strategy or this new whatever. And so if we go into this notion of what is it that I'm going to teach? Well, right now I'm trying to teach them to to find 23% of 67. Okay, I have that strategy, that explicit instructional strategy in place that's going to allow me to teach very systematically how to find 23% of 67. But with the notion of pre-skill, what skills do they need to have to be able to do that? What are those skills that are necessary? Well, they've got to be able to convert a percent to a decimal. They need to work a multiplication problem, and they need to put appropriate decimal placement and place value. So those are the three things that students need to be able to do in order to be able to benefit from this explicit instructional strategy on how to find 23% of 67. And so being able to work backwards and say, okay, this is a skill that I want to be able to do. Here are the things that I need to teach. Now, okay, once I've got that explicit strategy, what are the prerequisite skills that the student needs to have? And once you've identified those prerequisite skills, then you should pre-test them to determine if they have the pre-skills. So you need to test them to see if they have those pre-skills, because guess what? If they don't, you've got to bump it back, because now you're teaching at their frustration level, not their instructional level, and it's going to fall apart. And you're also teaching out of sequence, which we saw earlier does not bode well for mastery of the content. So now our first notion of instructional design is the example selection. You got to choose appropriate examples. I've seen too often that the examples don't match with what we're teaching, or they're really difficult. Remember, they're an initial acquisition of using this explicitly taught instructional strategy that you just went over. So they might have it some, because remember, when they're doing examples, they're watching it on the board, or they're trying it themselves in guided practice. What you got to make sure is that they can solve that problem using the strategy. So we want real simple. So if a student hasn't been taught subtraction using the null symbol of 0, then we shouldn't use that. It's comparable to reading. If they haven't learned the letter sound correspondence, then we should not ask them to read that. It's the same thing in math. If they haven't been taught the subtractions using 0, then we definitely shouldn't use those in our examples. So we want to use examples that are aligned with a new strategy, which means you've worked them through. Don't do them on the fly. You've worked them through. It makes sense. I always take the exact same examples from previously introduced strategies and the same numbers. Again, we're not trying to get them to solve it. We want them to solve the problem, but we'll get the answer. We're trying to get them to understand this new strategy. So by using the same numbers, it allows them to distinguish between different strategies, and helps to for that child to master the content much easier. So again, we want to make sure that we teach the pre-skills, or that we identify the pre-skills that are necessary to be able to accomplish this instructional strategy. And so we reverse engineer, we do the problem, and then here are the steps. So we've got that explicit strategy. Now, what are the skills they must have to be able to do those steps? And then we're going to test to see if indeed they possess those skills, and if not, then we just go back and teach. And then we go into the example selection. We're going to start off with really simple examples to begin with. We're going to make sure that they understand it. Pretty simple stuff, and then slowly increase it. We also should use the exact same integers, if possible, as we used with other strategies. And that allows us to really solidify mastery and also see the interchangeability of these strategies using a variety of different numbers. So there we go. We also need to take a look at this notion now at mass versus distributive practice. If you think of it in terms of mass being cramming for an exam, and distributive or spaced practice is studying a little bit over time, it should definitely see that there's pluses and minuses for both. So what I want you to do now is there's a short little video right below this, and I want you to go ahead and answer the questions, the comprehension questions, and then go into the mass and distributive practice video.